So what I'm going to do is use that same technique. Let's turn on polyframe. Hold down Control. And in this area right here, let's do something weird and let's put a back mesh in there. So I'm going to mask that out, hit Control W. Make sure I got my zombie brush. And let's grab this back mesh and we'll drag that out. So here's like a back plate that we took from our zombie. And you don't have to do this. You can sculpt it back if you'd like to, but what I'm doing is kind of putting a bunch of body parts together. So it's already got my landmarks, it's got my shoulder blades, it's got my spine. It's just what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and just, why reinvent this when I can just do this? Put a little back piece in there. You can smooth these transitions out. Use a clay brush to kind of make these things meld a little bit better. And there, I've already got my landmarks in there. I can move this in or move it around however I want. And down here, let's put in a chest. So let's go turn our floor plane off. It's kind of in the way. And I'm going to hold down Control. And we'll put in a big chest right in here. So I'm going to hit Control W to make that a poly group. And again, if you want to see that, just hit this polyframe mode right here. And we'll go grab our brush. Make sure we have chest here. Let's go ahead and drag that chest out. And while this is masked, you can actually go in here and move this mesh around or rotate it around, of course. Let's go ahead and rotate this just a bit. Move it back into place. I think that'll work, so go ahead and Control drag. And again, I'm not being real careful with either my insert brushes or my actual mesh, so when you sit down and do this, you'll probably do it a little bit cleaner than I am. But for demonstration purposes, this is going to work just fine. So here you can kind of see the chest muscles kind of coming in this way, so you can kind of sculpt those out. And there's a little bit of overlap for that mesh, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit. So you can go ahead and sculpt these chest muscles in, kind of refine this area. And you can continue these abs down here with the clay brush, kind of work this in. And we can move this mesh in to kind of match a little bit better. And let's put in one more back. We'll put in a back right here. So smooth this out just a bit, and let's give it a nice surface for that back to go on. Hold down Control, and let's mask that area out. Hit Control W, brush, select our zombie brush, M. Let's grab that back one more time. Turn on polyframe so we can see where we need to put this thing. Let's rotate it around. Oops. Kind of position this. I think that'll work good. Control swipe twice and do a little bit of cleanup. Alright, so there's our back, and of course you can continue the spine up if you want to, or the spine down, or you can put in another chest here if you'd like. I'm going to leave that alone for now. And just really quickly you can start plopping in body parts and have a nice cool creature base mesh kind of started here. And using our own insert brush is cool, but always remember that a ZBrush actually has brushes that you can pull from as well. Let's go ahead and look at some of those. One of them, go to Brush, Insert. Here's an insert ring, and when you draw this on, you're going to see it actually has two holes that you need to make sure you plan for. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and mask this area out, and mask this area out. Hit Control W. We'll drag that ring on there, and we're going to move this ring into place so that these empty holes line up with these mesh polygroups that we just made. So we're going to Control drag, swipe twice, and that'll put a perfect ring right in there. And it actually does really well with hard edge stuff as well. So we can actually go over here to, like, say, his head. Let's go ahead and mask this out. Hit Control W to make our polygroup. Let's go to Brush, Insert. We'll insert this button mesh, and we can go ahead and drag that out. So we've got our hard edge mesh going to this organic one, and when I drag that out, you can actually see how well that translates in between there. So feel free to use those meshes as well. And actually, speaking of hard edge brushes, let's talk about some hard edge techniques you can use in conjunction with these polygroups and inserting meshes. What I'm going to do is hold down Control, and we'll mask out a circle on the side of his neck. And when I hit Control W, by default, it's going to make a polygroup, but you're going to see all these individual polygons that's made up and get some really aliased lines here. One way to alleviate that is actually go over here to your polygroups menu, and where you see group mask, you see a polish slider. So we type in, say, 0.05, and now when I hit Control W, you're going to see it actually creates an edge loop around that polygroup and kind of makes it a little bit circular. Let's go ahead and crank that up. Instead of 0.05, let's do 0.15, and that'll actually make it even more polished when I hit Control W, so it's even more circular. So now I'm going to go to Brush, Insert, and let's do Insert Button 02. Drag that out, and let's move that just a little bit, see where we're putting this thing. So now when I Control Drag, you're going to see where it inserts into that mesh over here. It's a little bit more controlled because we did add that edge loop. Another thing you can do, let's go back to where we have our polygroup here, and we'll go up here to the geometry menu. Because I have the smooth on, it's actually smoothing the transition automatically when I combine these two objects. If I turn that off, and then since we have our Insert Button 02 already selected, we'll go ahead and draw that out in our mesh. And I'll move it up just a tad. So we've got it right over our polymesh there. If I have smooth off and I do that transition, it's going to do a really harsh insert into this mesh. So you can use that to your advantage in certain situations as well. So depending on the look you're going for, then of course you can still smooth this area out. But if you want a really harsh transition between two surfaces, feel free to turn that smooth off when you combine your insert meshes. And another cool thing you can do with insert meshes is insert a mesh into your mesh. And this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to hold Control, and we'll go ahead and make a polygroup here. And we got our smooth on, and it's going to make it rounder, which is cool with me. I'm going to go to Brush, Insert, and let's go ahead. Actually, you know what? Let's keep our Brush, Insert, Brush 02. Now, if I drag this out, it's just going to connect normally, just like that. Let's go ahead and turn our smooth modifier back on. But what I want to do actually is have this mesh go inside my mesh. So what I'm going to do is, when I drag it out, I'm going to hold down Alt, and you're going to see it actually inserts into my mesh here. So when I hold down Control and drag twice, it'll actually go into my mesh as opposed to out. So use that to your advantage as well. Another thing you can do using that same kind of technique is we're going to go hold down Control. Let's make a circle up here at the top of his leg, and at the bottom of his leg we'll hit Control W to make our polygroups, and I'm going to go to Brush, Insert, I'll do this Insert Cylinder, EXT, and then I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to put a cylinder inside of his leg, but this cylinder actually has, you can see in the preview here, it has holes on both sides of the mesh. So when I hold down Control and swipe twice, it's actually going to poke a hole all the way through his leg. So you can use that to your advantage as well while you're creating your base meshes here. And I'll show you one last thing, now that we've got our creepy carnival looking thing. And we can go Control Shift, and let's go select Lasso. And let's say we really like this head. We want to make it its own insert brush. Hit Frame. So what I'm going to do is orient this with just this part of his body showing. I'm going to orient him. And for my brush, I'm going to go grab my Insert Zombie brush because I want to put this head and this creepy stuff, these pods and stuff, as a appendage of this brush. So what I'm going to do is orient his head the way I want. I'm going to hit B. I'm going to do Create Insert Mesh. And it's going to ask me, would you like to append this head to the zombie brush? And yeah, I'm going to hit Append. And then hit OK. So now when I hit M, when I have that brush selected, I'm going to have a new head mesh in there. Let's go ahead and bring our guy back. And if we want to, we can go ahead and insert. Let's go ahead and insert his head, I don't know, down here somewhere. Let's go ahead and make a polygroup. And for this polygroup, let's go ahead and turn off our polish. Hit Control W, and we'll drag, we'll hit M, we'll select the head, go ahead and drag that out on that poly mesh there. Let's go ahead and rotate him to fit. Control drag. And now we have the head we stole from here actually dragged out there, which I don't know, I kind of actually really like that. So so you can make your own custom insert meshes based on the mesh that you're working on right now, and keep continuing adding to your library or creating new custom insert meshes as you go. And of course you don't have to stop at insert brushes. I mean, that's what I'm showing off in this video, but you can go up here. Let's go ahead and grab our tentacle brush that I made a while back, and we'll go ahead and turn off X. And we'll dock our brush and stroke over here. Let's go ahead and put some tentacles out of his mouth real quick. So it looks like what we need to do is go change our curve fall off to be the opposite. There we go. So we got the thick part of the tentacle up here. And we'll go ahead and turn our curve res down to 2. 1. There we go. So we got a nice smooth tentacle right here that we can plug into his neck. And if we like that, I'm just going to tap. We can draw out another tentacle. Update this on the fly. And I don't remember if we have bend on, but not snap. So with bend on, we can actually update this tentacle, but it won't snap to the surface. However, if we do want it to snap to the surface, which I do, I'm going to turn that on. So I'm going to click off so we can save that one. I'm going to hit snap. And let's say we want to snap this tentacle. Let's keep dragging this around. Let's keep dragging this around his body and just have it snap. Or actually, you know what? Let's have it go around his arm here. Go down. And I'll just keep dragging this down around his arm here. And so a snap on, as I'm moving the brush, it'll actually snap to the underlying mesh. And as we pull this thing around, it'll actually update. And you can just kind of slowly pull that along his arm and have it look pretty cool. So if you're happy with this, you can just go ahead and tap like I said. And let's see, let's turn on perspective, let's unmask, and here's our creature. Again, done really quickly for demonstration purposes, but it just shows you how fast you can create so many different types of things on your mesh. And one last thing before we head out, let's go ahead and talk about the forward history. You might have noticed that up here we've got these little squares. If you click and drag on that, that's actually history all the way back to where we started. So you can scroll through that and see what you've done, and you can stop anywhere and make adjustments and start from there if you'd like. Another thing you can do that's really cool, let's go ahead and, well, here's our edit menu. Here's our undo counter if you actually want to see the numbers that you're stubbing through. A cool thing you can do though is, let's take our movie menu and dock it over here, and you can actually make a movie of your mesh going through those forward history, so you can actually show somebody how you sculpted something without you having to sit there and sculpt it. So what I mean by that is, let's go to our modifiers, and under title image and overlay image I went ahead and put those down to 0. What you need to look at here is H frames, H recenter, H position, and H orientation. The documentation is pretty good. Most of these have to deal with how your object was oriented as you were working on it and whether or not to either let that go or keep it or a percentage of in between. And what I like to do just to keep it kind of smooth is I'm going to take my H position and put it at 4 and my H orientation and put it at 4, and I'll just keep the defaults and everything else. And once I have that all set up, in order to get this movie recording, all you have to do is hit this F history, and that'll play through your history forward. However, if you want to play through your history backward, you can hit B history. Another thing you can do is actually do a BPR render first, in which case you'll have all these render options available to you, and then do the movie, so you can have a really nice, polished movie. And of course, you can change your material to a different material as you're rendering through if you want to. We'll go ahead and keep matcap gray. So for performance reasons, while I'm recording, I'm going to go ahead and put SPix down to 0 and then hit BPR so we can get some shadows going. And once I have that, if I hit F history, what it's going to do is start recording this history, how I created the movie, and it's kind of keeping the orientation of what I was working on or how my camera was oriented on the object as I was working, but it's also interpolating its own, it's kind of smoothing out the interpolations between the movements, so it's a little bit of a smoother movie. And actually, it looked like it started kind of in the middle. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete the previous movie I had in there, and I'm going to scroll back to the beginning here, hit BPR render, and then hit F history one more time. There we go. Now we're starting out at the beginning. And I sped up that last part so you don't have to sit there and watch it render. But once you get your movie all rendered out, and you'll know you do because you have a delete key over here, you can go ahead and hit the export button. And let's go ahead and say where this test movie we've already made. And the compression settings that you want to do, you can change different compressions and the quality here. Hit OK, and it'll go ahead and export that as a movie file that you can upload on the internet, show your friends, all that cool stuff. So thanks for sitting through the basics of using custom and ZBrush insert meshes, and I hope it was informative and clear. And as always, please check out pixelogic.com for more instructional videos.